Today we're in Windsor, which is sometimes the home of the royals. Usually they swan about in that castle up there, but today at Republic we're here for something a little bit different. Activists from Extinction Rebellion will be occupying the Windsor Castle Park and asking whether Charles is truly the environmentalist he claims to be. Why Extinction Rebellion here today with the occupation, with the march here in Windsor?
Yeah, so we're here today as part of a three-day protest, demonstration, or as I like to call it, democracy boot camp. So we're not doing our usual disruption and sort of actions like that. This weekend is really all about learning about the political system, the economic system, the justice system, just the whole system that is not functioning properly, and then learning about alternative things and reimagining our future.
So obviously you've got power to the people on your side as well. You know, big questions about the democracy and the monarchy.
Yeah.
You know, what's your sort of view on the relationship between us having an unelected head of state and, you know, trying to save the environment, trying to promote environmentalism?
Well, it's all about power to the people and people working in their communities. And eventually we have to change the system so that the power isn't all in the hands of the elites and the corporations. And Charles is just one of, you know, the elites among a few others, not very many of them actually. So all the same families who own, you know, all of the media and the pharmaceutical companies and everything, and they're the ones who hold the power. Not our elected governments, they're just puppets.
So, you know, obviously we're here today, part of the symbolism is that Charles has claimed he's an environmentalist, etc. So what's your view on the relationship between him and the environment, you know, considering he does fly about in helicopters, has a really high carbon footprint, etc.?
Well, I think that's really quite a worry because he is like a figurehead for a lot of people, and if he would take a stand against, you know, the use of helicopters and private jets and all, and actually point out how damaging that would be, I think a lot of people would hear that. So I think he's got a lot of power in that way. And as he is a proclaimed environmentalist, I would hope that he would move towards doing that and explaining that more to people. It's a very big causer of CO2 pollution, air travel.
So, you know, obviously, why is it so important that we do have people who are in positions of power, you know, whether you agree in the way in which they've been put in those positions of power, not speak up for environmental issues?
Because, I mean, Extinction Rebellion have been doing this for years now, trying to get our voices heard and trying to get through to the extreme emergency of the situation with the global warming, already expecting thousands and thousands of people and due to affect us all in lots of bad, very difficult ways. Our voices aren't being heard, you know. King Charles has got a much better chance of being listened to, I would have thought.
See, you're here in Windsor today. It's a big protest, big occupation of Windsor Castle Park. You know, why do you think it was so important to come along today?
I think this is a good target. Charlie is a person who has said, in his own words, that this is important to him, and whether you believe in there should be a monarchy or not, and I don't, for the record, if we give this man all of this money and all of his time, what is he for if he's not defending the, like, integrity of this land or nation? Like, what is the king for if his royal blood isn't supposed to do something magic to keep the country healthy or whatever it is? This is why I came. I like this one. We had a lot of debate about how we were going to do it and like whether we should invite him and whatever, and like, okay, but honestly, I think this is a challenge. This is, what is any of this for if it is not to keep this land alive? And he knows this. He's not ignorant of it. He's currently not here, so it doesn't matter. But, you know, and he'd have to probably have flown back if he did want to join, but that's not really the point.
You did speak there about the idea, you know, he's flown up and around. I think, you know, he flies about in helicopters a lot of the time. His carbon footprint is a lot higher than the average. I think it's about 36 times the average Briton. Do you think this, you know, do you think that's hypocritical, the fact that he has written these books, done these speeches about environmentalism, but, you know, still in his day-to-day life, you know, his carbon emissions are mental, basically?
I would possibly reframe the question. I think the argument to hypocrisy is very easy to make. You can point it at any of us as well. I had a guy tell me yesterday. I do logistics for my crew, so I brought everyone down. I brought a bunch of people, and yeah, I drive a car I borrowed from my mum that runs on diesel because I can't afford an EV yet. Right? So the argument to hypocrisy, yeah, these shoes have rubber in them. These things are made with carbon. Of course they are. But by the same token, yeah, dude understands the damage he's doing and he's doing it anyway. I'm sure he's probably doing it because someone says, well, you have to be in Balmoral tomorrow and you have to be in Bahrain the day after that. And I appreciate, guy's busy, he does have to move around fast. But there are really good trains and Zoom is a thing you can use now. I know he's old, but still. I don't think anyone should have a carbon footprint like that for any reason at all, regardless of whether or not it's hypocritical or not. But yeah, I mean, like he does, as I said, man's aware of the damage he's doing, and he's doing it anyway. And he said he explicitly said he wouldn't speak out on this as king. I mean, he's not wrong. The revolution is an interesting word for a future monarch to use. And if he uses it intentionally, does he want to be deposed? Is that what we're asking? I don't know. It seems like it just seems like an odd. I don't know. He has a strange relationship with this stuff.
What's your sort of view on the relationship between Charles and the environment?
When he was prince, obviously he had a lot more influence. Now he's bound by the sort of royal procedure of being king, and he's not in a position to do as much as he could speak out about the environment or even suggest laws that would improve the environment and mitigate against the climate emergency and ecological breakdown that we're currently experiencing. Yeah, I don't want an unelected head of state that just sits there as a mascot even for the UK. No, he should go retire, put his feet up. He probably's got his feet up today in one of his many royal homes.
Do you think that's part of the problem then? The fact that
He is, yeah.
that we have an unelected head of state that isn't, that can't speak out about these issues, and at the same time has all this wealth and has all this power and does nothing. In fact, violates a lot of these supposedly environmental principles he has anyway.
Absolutely, you've just summed it up in a nutshell.
Why do you think it's so important that, for example, if we had an elected head of state, that they speak up for environmentalism?
Well, they would be directly responsible to the will of the people, and if the will of the people says, actually, we don't want our rivers full of sewage, we don't want dead hedgehogs everywhere, the species being threatened, and things escalating to a point where people are dying during summers because we haven't got AC, we haven't got insulated homes. It's just snowballs, that kind of effect, I believe.
So we found another Republic member in the wild. Obviously Charles claims he's an environmentalist, but still jets around in helicopters, private jets, everything. What's your sort of views on that sort of contradictory nature of his relationship with the environment?
I'm afraid it speaks to his privilege. He's been raised in an incredibly privileged way, and I'm sure he, in his own way, he does believe that but perhaps the way he sees ecology and environmental protection working is problematic in its own way. I suspect it's perhaps slightly exclusionary, as in protect nature by removing the people, which I think is not the way to actually. The people are part of nature, so I'm very highly sceptical of Charles's. I'm sure in some ways he means well, but in other ways I think he's deeply problematic, as is the whole institution of monarchy, as we probably can both agree.
How do you think having an elected head of state would actually change the way in which our country deals with environmentalism?
Well, I'm not sure it would. It could if you dismantled the monarchy, if you managed the land differently, particularly the duchies of Cornwall, the Duchy of Lancaster, and some of the states. I think you could change the way that was managed. I'm not sure that would be direct from the elected head of state, because the elected head of state would just be as a figurehead, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I think dismantling the monarchy would allow us to question how we manage land and who owns the land. The royal estates are quite large chunks of land in their own right, and it can start the conversation about land ownership, which we really need to have in this country, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all squashed into small little bits and excluded quite from huge tracts, particularly in England.
Obviously, in this environmental protest, environmental occupation today, why do you think it's so important for a head of state to speak out about environmental issues and climate change in the world and in the country?
coming back to the system issues, systemic issues that we've got, if we want to go back all the way, a lot of people would say that kings and queens were the original gangsters, that they formulated power around themselves and held on to power no matter no matter what they needed to do to hold on to it. They would kill, they would maim, they would do whatever they had to. As the centuries have gone by, of course, with changes to that system where you had feudal lords owning lots of things and democracies to varying degrees have come into place, we lessen that impact. But still, those people in power, it's very difficult. You know, when you have a lot of power, it's very difficult to let go of. Then when we've come to the last couple of 100 years and where fossil fuels have made a very few people very wealthy, and those that control all of that cheap energy have been able to become the feudal lords again in many ways. So we still have democracy in name in many places, but actually the power of the corporation, certainly over the last 150 years, is for me the true power now.
Fact of the matter is that Charles is a climate change hypocrite. He flies around in private jets, helicopters, even when taking a train would be much more environmentally friendly. His carbon footprint is 36 times the footprint of an average British person. His words don't match up to his actions. He might have written books, he might have given speeches, he might have claimed to have been an environmentalist at points throughout his life. But again, things don't add up. Really, the only way in which we're going to be able to change this whole thing is by electing our head of state, having someone who is accountable, having someone who will stand up for climate change, and we can scrutinise them for that. Hopefully, that day will come with us soon.